Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Mountain and Adventure Film Festival. Today we are very, very lucky to have a Q&A with the one and only Steph Davis, which today is being presented and brought to you by Designer Protein. And so before we get started with Steph, here's a little clip with athlete Carrie Walsh talking about their organic Pro 30 line. So enjoy this little clip and then we'll get right into it with Steph. Designer Way, thank you much for helping make this happen. You believe in a healthy lifestyle, which brings us back to Steph Davis, who has been pushing the boundaries of athletics while also pioneering a vegan lifestyle and nutrition, and through her blog and her voice sharing all of it with us. So, hi Steph.
Hi.
So let's say, since we're on the theme of nutrition, let's just talk about, in general, like what does your day look like? I'm sure this morning, did you climb a mountain and jump off of it already?
That is a typical morning in Moab. I live in Moab, and there's a lot of very accessible adventure here. So a typical morning is waking up, hiking up for a short base jump, coming home, maybe eating a little bit, then going climbing. And depending on the season, there's so many different things you can do here. Sometimes go skydiving, sometimes I go up in the mountains, go skate skiing, go running. So a lot of it's seasonal, a lot of it's the weather that day, and there's just so many things to do.
So how do you, with all of that activity, like what does the fueling look like? From when you get up in the morning to after you come back from your first hike and jump to then your climb, like how do you keep yourself from crashing during the day? Because that's a lot of output.
Yeah, well, I really believe in just kind of listening to my body, and a part of that is because I eat really clean. I've been eating plant-based since 2000, I always forget, I think 2002, something like that. And I don't really eat anything pre-made for the most part. I do most of my own cooking, just whole foods, really simple ingredients. And I think when you eat like that, you're not really getting trapped by cravings or kind of like the sweet tooth or the fast food tooth or whatever. And so I just really listen to it. So if I'm not hungry, I don't eat. If I'm hungry, I eat. What I feel like eating is what I eat. And it seems to work pretty well for me, just kind of listening to it.
Now, what about like on endurance? Because that's always my challenge. Is I'm really good up until about 2 hours. And at that 2 hour mark, if I'm going to be going for another hour or more, I'm really finicky about what I can put in my body that's going to give me the energy without, slowing me down or causing cramps, or because if I do it wrong by 2:20, I'm hitting the wall.
I could see that. Yeah, it's tricky. I think everybody's a little different as far as what works for you. For example, years ago, I did an ultra marathon, which I'm not an ultra marathoner. I like running, but I was like, oh, this will be good training. So that's why I did it. And I was pretty shocked at how hard it was to deal with eating in a run like that, which was so much more than I had done before. In fact, the only thing I could actually eat during the run was applesauce, which was kind of like this random surprise because I think it was wet, so it went down easier. But it seems like different activities, I find different things to work well for me. Recently, if I know I'm going to be doing a lot of output for a long time, my thing has been hummus for some reason. And so I'll make like a hummus sandwich and take that with me and just be eating that kind of throughout, which is kind of a weird food item. But recently that's been working really well for me. Sometimes I've done other kind of weird things. I've done kale salad, which is kind of weird. So I'll chop up kale and I'll put like olive oil and apple cider vinegar on it and nutritional yeast. And I'll take that out like on a climbing day, which is really weird at the crag, like getting kale salad. But as far as like quick and easy, just dried fruit and nuts has been my staple.
Well, and now kind of pulling things back because you recently re-released your book, Learning to Fly, and which is fabulous. Anybody who's listening, you must go get that book. It's one of the best written books. I felt like I was in that boulder cave with you. I felt like I was on the wall. It was like you have an amazing voice and the ability to share these experiences with us. But in there, you talk a lot, like with your solos, about going up on the mountain, like climbing on Long's Peak, and then spending the night in a cave and waking up. And you talked about making tea, but did you track food in there with you, or were you just getting up, having a little bit of tea, and then able to do your climb on an empty stomach, or what were you doing to get through those periods?
Usually in the mountains like that, it's funny because you wake up alpine start, so it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I personally don't really want to eat right then. I just don't feel like it. But I will force down oatmeal or muesli in the morning, so that's kind of my traditional eating way. If it's like an alpine start, I'll make some ginger tea first thing, which is what I actually want to eat, and I'll be drinking that. And then in the meantime, I'll just, with the same hot water, I'll take some muesli and powdered soy milk and just let that sit and cook itself so you're not wasting fuel. And then I really don't want to eat that because I'm just not hungry, but I know I have to. It helps if you make it a little more watery than normal. It's kind of like easier to get it down. And so I'll just kind of make myself eat that in the, in the cave or in the tent, just because I know I have to. But I expect to be eating dried fruit and nuts, kind of later on as I get actually hungry.
Well, good. Well, I see too that we do have, some people that are watching with us. And if you have any questions along the way, you can click on, there's a button somewhere on your screen that says you can type in questions. And as we receive them, I'll pass them on to Steph. So please, by all means, do share with us. And, so now I guess getting back into the book, like, okay, we've talked a lot about physical training, but in everything you do, there's so much mental training involved. How do you begin can you train for that, or is that just experience?
I think that you can train for it. I have always trained for it. One thing that I've always trained for, even like way back when I didn't really know what I was trying to do, was training for just being uncomfortable and kind of like suffering, which is kind of something I've always done through trail running. And I talked about doing an ultra marathon. The reason I did that was because I wanted to free climb El Cap in a day. And I just knew it was going to be kind of a sufferfest. And I was like, distance running is really, really hard. I think it's one of the hardest things that I've tried to do. And I just thought, if I do an ultra marathon, I'm going to totally suffer and like have to keep going. And that's going to be the training. Just doing that. I remember when I first started running, I was in college when I started running a lot, and I ran with a friend of mine, and he's really good with science, and he always studies like the physiological things and what you're supposed to do. And I remember we would run in Fort Collins on this trail called the A Trail that was kind of like going up this steep ridge, and I would be like really slowly running because it was kind of a steep grade. And my friend Chad, he would be like, Steph, I did research, and it turns out that cardiovascularly, it actually gives you better results if you hike quickly than running at this grade. And I was like, well, I'm just running because I'm training myself to suffer right now because I don't want to run up this hill, but like I'm going to do it until I get to the top. So it's kind of like two different approaches, like it probably is physiologically better to hike on a steep grade, but to me, it's that concept of like, I'm not going to stop. Like, I really want to stop, but I just have to keep going. And that's just a learned experience, I think.
No, I'm with you. It's so true. There's a local mountain that I hike and run here. In one time, it's like I really built up to where I could jog the whole thing,
Hmm.
and I was so disappointed to find out that my jogging time was 10 minutes slower than my hiking time.
Yeah, yeah. But it's just like, what are you training for? You know, are you actually training physically, or are you training like emotionally? And it's hard to keep running, even if it's like a pathetical or a pathetic little trot. You know, it's just really hard to make yourself keep doing that. And I think that's training.
No, I agree. It's interesting. Most of my life, it was very anaerobic, and recently I've gotten into the endurance, and it's amazing how much of a difference it really has made in my climbing.
Hmm.
About getting up, and especially when you start to get high up on a rock, where all of a sudden you realize like your heart rate's not accelerated, you're not pumping out, your head's in a different space, and I
Yeah,
see it also. It's
physical
great.
side, definitely. But the mental side is just when you really don't want to keep doing it, but you keep doing it anyway.
Yeah, that usually happens for me, especially on the road by like mile 2.
Yeah, I know. Running on the road is like torture. I feel like that too after 10 feet.
Yeah, it's like my hat's off to people that can go spend an hour like on the treadmill in the gym, because I
Yeah,
there's no, I do this is not me.
I can't do that either. But then there's also kind of the mental side of that's kind of the suffering training, which I think you just have to do. But there's also the mental side of getting yourself out of your comfort zone, and I think that that is something we can train for too, which is first of all just by doing things that are out of your comfort zone, and doing them really step by step and bit by bit. That's the thing I'm always really trying to encourage people to do, is to realize that, when you see this really amazing stuff, like people doing these huge ascents of things, or, something really impressive, like some big ski descent, and you watch it and you're like, I could never do that, or wow, I can't believe they just went and did that. But you don't see all the work that went into it. Like the very gradual bit by bit, and people who are doing amazing things, it's like they just build up to it slowly. It's not like you just show up one day and do this crazy thing. It's very gradual. And so that's kind of, it's not as exciting to think that that's how it works, but it's more inspiring, because you're like, hey, I can do that too. I can go chip away at something that seems really intimidating and just do it bit by bit by bit, and then one day you're doing the amazing thing.
Well, it's an important point. Like I hear when people who are not in this sport see what you do and what some of the other athletes are doing, that the words that come to their mind are daredevil, crazy, adrenaline, lunatic. But they're only seeing the stunt, and they're envisioning from their perspective that, yeah, it really would be a death wish for them to do it, because they don't have the experience in training. And what I hope that we can convey through some of these Q&As and through the festival and other things we do is that you're some of the greatest athletes in the world who, as we spoke about at the very beginning, every single day you're getting up, you're climbing something, you're jumping off of something, you're training yourself, you're eating properly, you're foregoing things that hurt performance, so that when you go out there, it's not, you're not rolling the dice. You are climbing within your ability. And it's a quote that I mentioned the other day, but I loved what Alex Honnold said, that what he does, he believes, is very low risk, but it is very high consequence. And I think that sums it up well, that it's not high risk, like at the level you're climbing at or jumping at is well within your ability level, to where the risk of you falling is very low. But there is the pressure that if you do fall, it's pretty bad. So, staying up there with fears, like they say, our natural fears are falling. And one of the other big ones is public speaking, and yet you do a lot of that as well. So how has that kind of the melding of the worlds between the solitary pursuits in the mountains and writing against the very public pursuits of film and speaking? How's that work?
Well, I think it's really interesting to hear about other people's perspectives and experiences. And like you said, I do think that sometimes it's hard to understand things that look really extreme. I think they have a big effect on people, on their psyche, and kind of cause a lot of emotional reactions. But sometimes people don't understand. what it is you're actually doing and why you're doing it. And when they do understand, that's really interesting and kind of gives them food for thought. So I kind of like that exchange with people, and that's a big motivator for me to go out and share my stories and try to hear other people's stories.
Compared to the high that you probably feel or the freedom you feel when you're flying or climbing, is everyday life and the calmness of it, does that sometimes feel like a letdown, and are you itching to get out, or is the balance something that you embrace both sides of?
Well, I'm not really doing the things I do because I'm trying to get this big adrenaline rush. Typically,
I don't think it's an adrenaline rush so much as just a feeling of living.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's all wrapped up together. I mean, in my daily life, there's like vacuuming that needs to get done, and then there's base jumping that needs to get done. So it's, it's just kind of all balled up together for me.
And with the training too, I guess that, to pull it back there just for a moment, how do you train a dog to go to the top of the cliff with you, and then when you jump off, that he or she knows that they need to go back down the trail?
The little dog creature. I don't even know where she is right now. She's around here somewhere. Yeah, Cajun, she runs down. It's really cute, and it's definitely a big motivation for me to go base jumping because she's very active and she needs a lot of exercise, and so it's kind of like 2 for 1 because she gets the 40-minute hike up together, and then I jump, and then she just sprints back down, so she gets like double distance, which is really nice. She does it really quick by herself, but.
In the beginning, did she ever like sit on top waiting for you to come back and get her?
No. She's a kind of a mix, like probably a bunch of border collie and some Australian shepherd and little healer. So she does not like to be apart from me, and so like her goal in life is to be with me all the time and chase the ball. But it's like she's really smart and she wants to have a job, so I think it's really fun for her in a way. Like I think she doesn't like being by herself, so she's like super motivated to get down as soon as possible and not be by herself. But I think she likes the fact that she's got something that she does, and she knows how it works. Like she goes up there, she watches, she sees me land, and like she needs to get down there as fast as possible. And then sometimes it's tricky because we'll do like a hike up, and then I'll climb. And so when I'm climbing, she's like, oh, I need to wait because she's climbing. So when she climbs, I wait. But then if I get to the top and she sees a jump happen, then her little mind is like, oh, it's a jump. Now I have to run down. So it's neat because it's not always the same. And I think that's cool for her too.
So is there a circuit of jumps, climbs, hikes, and jumps that you do in the Moab region, or is there a specific place that you tend to go back to time and time again?
There's so many different ones here. And so it just always depends on sometimes conditions. Like right now it's kind of snowy in Moab, so there's some cliffs that you just can't hike to the top of because there's snow all over it. Sometimes it depends if it's sunny or shady. Sometimes it depends like if there's a little wind, what direction, what aspect it's facing. And then it just sort of depends on what you felt like doing that day. If you want to do a big climb like Castleton, or if you just want to do a quick walk. So there's just a lot to choose from.
And back to writing. It's like you've got a blog. Where's the inspiration come from? Like how do you choose the subjects that you want to write about? Because they're all amazing. It's like everyone I've talked to within the industry, they all unanimously agree that you are the best writer among all of us.
That's nice. Well, some of it is just stuff that's interesting to me, but I know that other people are interested in because it's like, it's my blog, but the idea is to make it interesting for other people. So some of the things are things that I know that, I share interests with people, like cooking and climbing and training and dogs and vans and travel and stuff like that. But one thing that's really awesome, which I love, is that people write me letters. And so, I get people's letters and I know exactly what people want to talk about. And then a lot of times that'll be a springboard if it's something I was thinking about too. Or I'll just try to, very specifically answer the questions. Sometimes what's really fun is that people will ask questions that I feel like I know somebody else who's more qualified to answer it than I am, or more of an expert. And then, usually a friend of mine or somebody I know through climbing, and then I'll email them and I'll say, hey, would you be interested in answering this letter? Because I feel like you know more than I do about it. So I get some cool guest posts sometimes because it just seems like more relevant to have them answer it. So it's pretty fun. I like it.
And of all the, I guess, recipes that you've shared, do you have a favorite?
Oh, favorite. I really like my apple pie recipe a lot. I think it's a really good recipe. And I keep trying to do this cupcake extravaganza recipe post, which is like, it just keeps growing, so I keep not doing it. But I just have like all these different cupcake recipes, and for frosting, which is good for you instead of gross, where you make it out of, they're all different, like cashews and maple syrup and dates and frosting you actually want to eat. But it's like kind of mix and match because I have like all these different cupcake recipes and all these different frosting recipes, and you could make like, this cupcake with that frosting. So I keep wanting to just do this like massive cupcake recipe, just lexicon, but I haven't posted it yet.
Well, that'll be the next book.
Yeah, or the next series, the next recipe series.
Perfect. Well, we're going to be wrapping up soon, but to our viewers out there, again, if you have any questions, please type them in, and Steph can answer them. But is there any big trips or anything coming up now on the horizon? Any expeditions?
Expeditions. Nope. Spring is coming, so that's kind of a good season in Moab, and I have a bunch of clinics coming up, and so I'm going to be pretty busy here for the next few months at least. And I don't really plan that far out. I usually do like a few months at a time.
Perfect. Well, again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Steph, thank you so much for your time. Designer Protein, thank you for making this happen. And everybody, by all means, if you are looking for protein powders or supplements, both organic or whey, check out Designer Protein. And we're going to give a little plug to them for their support in making this happen. If you have any questions for Steph, if you go to the Mountain Adventure Film Festival under the Athlete Ambassador Council, you can access Steph's website, her blog, her social feeds. I know if you post something, a question for her on any of her feeds, when she's not out jumping or climbing or hiking or running or writing, she'll do her best to get back to you. So thank you so much, everybody. Steph, thank you so much for your time. And
Sure.
And if you haven't yet, go to mountainandadventurefilm.com, get the films, get inspired, and enjoy what all of these athletes. Steph has a film called The Mysteries where she's featured in the festival, so you should really check it out. It's quite good, and there's a lot about, 69 other films that will get you going. So, thank you.
Sure.